Yeah, in the vast majority of the stores for the holiday season, but it's a big improvement from when they brought in Sephora, and they did it as a replacement of jewelry, not something you can really do because that's the key gifting category for consumers during the holidays and other key gifting seasons. So making some decisions very quickly that are showing green shoots of improvement there, and I think that is encouraging for Kohl's.
And let's turn in the time we have left to Abercrombie and Fitch. You mentioned some of the challenges that some of its specific brands could be facing. Talk us a little bit more through that and how name brand apparel is faring overall in this current economic environment.
Yeah, so Nathan, actually, overall, I would say apparel overall looks to be very strong, especially for those that are executing. And if you look on, let's say, the off-price, because we had TJX report and they had great numbers. So that just goes to show you they're carrying all the name brands and the consumers love it. So they're flocking to off-price. But going back to Abercrombie, the namesake brand, has posted 4 years of double-digit comp sales increases. So we're now cycling those 4 years, and that's why their sales are coming in lower year over year on a comp sales basis. So it's really hard to keep bringing in more newness, more excitement to keep that going. And their core customer there are really the millennials. Their Hollister brand really shows that that's still performing well. Now, is it performing as good as analysts expect? Based on the data, we're not so sure, but that's something we're going to look for next Tuesday when they go to report their results. And Hollister really caters to the Gen Z customer. And that customer, by the way, loves to shop in stores. 70% of their sales are generated in store. And Abercrombie, 60% are generated online.
Lots to think about in the retail space. Thank you for this, Mary.
Hello, Jibu.
That's Mary Ross.
How's everything today?
Analyst covering retail for Bloomberg Intelligence. And coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, we'll look ahead to the UK's highly anticipated autumn budget. I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.
Breaking news first. September payrolls rise more than expected.
Non-farm payrolls, 119,000.
We did see unemployment rise. Pretty solid labor market right here.
Rate cuts still in place. Instant reaction.
From the experts.
It does keep the possibility of a rate cut definitely on the table. I don't think it's going to change anybody's mind.
I think the Fed can cut in December.
For breaking news that moves market.
So we got to go over the numbers here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Let's see if we got any winners.
Now you can use cars in your Amazon card. Come see our great selection of quality certified pre-owned vehicles and ship the dealership.
Is that the? That's only the nighttime. That's the nighttime winners. You still got to get me the daytime. The daytime is orange and the nighttime is purple, right?
Nothing says this will give shoppers another option at a time the average new car costs $50,000.
The average price of a used car, a 3-year-old used car, is about $31,000.
All right, send me the orange because I only got the purple. Send me the orange.
Limited warranties, and if you buy them online, you don't have to haggle on price. You still got to pick it up at the dealer, but not before there is plenty of interest.
Used vehicles are what a lot of mainstream buyers are trying to ship.
Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
The next wave of opportunity isn't in yesterday's market, it's in tomorrow. Private assets are expanding fast. VanEck, GPZ, ETF, gives you
All right, so we got 229.
Private asset managers across credit, equity, infrastructure, and real estate. Invest in the future of private assets today with GPZ. Investing involves substantial risk and high volatility, including possible loss of principal. Visit VanEck.com/GPZ Radio to read and consider the prospectus containing the investment.
Let's see, do we have 229?
Before investing.
Miss today's top interviews from Bloomberg News? Catch up on the Bloomberg Talk podcast. Subscribe today on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts.
Bloomberg Weather is brought to you by Compassion International.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and most of all, being known, loved, and protected. There are thousands of kids waiting over a year, and they're waiting. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Check the word radio.
We got 281. Let's see, 229.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on
428.
As it begins to clear out through the evening and overnight hours tonight with breezy conditions and the low 35 to 40. But mostly sunny for Monday.
Nope, not 229. Let's see, 9386.
Overcast on Tuesday, showers in Berg, 11:30. Will the Democrats reclaim the House in 2026?
Is that a question?
Yes, it is. Recently, on IBKR Forecast Trader, yes was 71 cents. No was 29. If you're right,
9386.
When?
after the 2026 election. But you earn an interest spike incentive coupon daily, and you can sell anytime the price works for you.
So if I buy yes at 71 and then later buy no at 15, that's 14 cents profit?
Exactly. $1 in, 86 cents out.
We got 9174. Let's see,
IBKR
9346.
at ibkr.com/elect.
Restrictions apply. Forecast contracts not suitable for all investors.
Indices built to someone else's specification, that's the old way.
Let's check.
Design custom benchmarks and distribute them at speed.
Let's check one page back in history.
At Bloomberg.com/equity index licensing.
Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
Today in Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs ran for a 69-yard touchdown on the first snap of overtime after Jake Bates kicked a 59-yard field goal in the final minute of regulation to force overtime.
93.
The Lions come from behind win over the Giants, 34-27. Also today, the Ravens
86.
23-10, falling to 2-9. That's your Bloomberg Sports. I'm Seth Everett. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, our global look ahead at the top stories for investors.
229. Let's check 229 again.
Up later in our program, we'll look ahead to some key economic data from the world's second largest economy. But first, in a few days' time, UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves will deliver an autumn budget, which she hopes to lessen the debt burden plaguing the country.
Oh, we got 222.
Become one of the most hotly debated
We got
fiscal events of the year
222,
among
off by
investors,
one digit.
and business leaders. But will Reeves be able to balance party, politics, and prudence? For more, let's go to London and bring in Bloomberg Data.
You heard Jibu. We got 222, off by one digit. Let's go check the other number card.
U-turns and a political crisis in recent weeks. Yet one constant has been the Chancellor's indication that she plans to give herself more breathing space against her own fiscal rules. However, with an income tax hike appearing to be dropped and Reeves favours multiple.
All right, so the orange one. So let's see, 691.
And economists are
Did we get 691?
she can make the numbers out of.
Oh yeah, look at that. We got 6.
The deadline to share her economic plan for the country looms large. Week options, which now span the upcoming fiscal event, have climbed to multi-month highs for major sterling pairs, this in recent days, as traders pay to protect themselves against potential swings in the pound. According to Bloomberg strategists, the waters have also been muddied ahead of the announcement. There are worries that the government will wrong foot the market. Reeves' bid to increase the fiscal headroom comes against the backdrop of a significant deterioration in the public finances since her last economic statement back in the spring. She left herself a slim £9.9 billion margin against her spending rules, a buffer near historic lows. Now, the latest forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility show that her position has worsened by about £20 billion since then, driven lower by a productivity downgrade and those policy U-turns I mentioned. That's as the FTSE 100 had its worst run since August in the lead up to the budget, amidst worries about AI being a bubble and signs of corporate.
All right, so we'll get to that. Okay, so let's see. We're going to choose aqua blue today. Today's color is aqua blue.
Without spooking investors or exacerbating the flight of global capital. Kamakshaya Trivedi, Chief FX and Emerging Market Strategist at Goldman Sachs, tells me there are a number of factors at play.
Look, I think it's a really interesting juncture for the UK. I think the inflation release, the fact that it has come down alongside some of the weaker labor market data that you had in the last couple of weeks, I think those are important. I mean, there is obviously a lot of back and forth, a lot of uncertainty around, exactly what is and isn't going to be in the budget. I mean, if you take a step back and think about it from a macro standpoint, irrespective of the exact tax and spending decisions that they make, it looks like this is going to be a budget that is, going to be fiscally conservative.
Kamakshaya Trivedi, Chief FX and Emerging Market Strategist at Goldman Sachs, speaking there to me and Stephen Cow on Bloomberg Radio. Well, also part of the equation are the political pressures facing the Chancellor, who is attempting to unite what seems Parliamentary Labour Party, the delicate balance between investors, voters and MPs is something I've been discussing with Bloomberg's chief UK economist, Dan Hansen, and our UK politics reporter, Joe Mays. Dan, can I start with you, just on the economics firstly? There's been some back and forth about just how big of a fiscal hole Rachel Reeves is facing. Can you just give us an update on the latest expectations from the Office of Budget Responsibility and what that means?
Sort of reading between the lines of everything we've heard, and particularly from our Bloomberg News colleagues, the number seems to be around £20 billion, the fiscal slippage. Now, that's made up of quite a few things, and actually quite a few offsetting things. The biggest reason for the hole is that the OBR, which is the UK...
All right, so we're choosing numbers now.
How quickly it thinks the economy can grow in the medium term, in particular how quickly productivity in the UK economy is likely to rise over the next 5 years. That is the single biggest factor determining the fiscal forecast, the path of productivity growth. So if you change that, you play around with the numbers quite significantly, and we think that could blow up.
All right, so we got the we got 1781, we got 9982, we got 2763, we got 5461, we got 9009, we got 8829, and we got 3763.
Quite low compared to other forecasters, and obviously that gets some money back for the Chancellor. So I think a reasonable expectation is something in the region of £20 billion.
So that's the economics. What about the politics? We've heard a lot about the political pressure facing the Chancellor.
All right, I got two new.
Where is it coming from, Joe?
I got two new. I got the orange one, and I got a whole bunch of charts here. We got two orange ones and four black and white ones. We got two orange ones and four black and white ones.
And really the question of this budget has been, to me, how aggressively can she fill that hole?
All right, now we got to get, let's see, 1957.
Her fiscal buffer to give her breathing space for the rest of the parliament. Now, my sense from the Treasury about a month ago was that she was willing to go quite aggressive. She was really willing to build that fiscal headroom up, perhaps up to £20 billion, 25, and really impress markets, show markets that she was a really strong, stable chancellor, and she hoped she'd be rewarded with lower borrowing costs.
1957.
Then we saw this change in the last few weeks where
we got 1974.
Like the briefing against Rose Streeting from Number 10, and how that immediately shone a light on the leadership of Keir Starmer and raised questions about how stable he is, which in turn raises questions about how stable Rachel Reeves is. There's such a partnership there that it seems like what happened was they realised they couldn't go so aggressive with the tax increases, especially touching the manifesto promises around income tax, national insurance, VAT.
We got 1947.
To ward off some of that threat from Labour MPs. And that's why we've got this new position where it looks like the manifesto won't necessarily be broken. She will still try and restore her fiscal buffer, perhaps increase it a little bit, but I don't think as much as she might have done before that whole episode.
Dan, do her plans add up, though, without major tax hikes, increases to the headline rate of income tax?
What was quite strange about what was being briefed is that they were going to do this 2 up, 2 down policy where they'd raise.
We got 2020
by 2p, and it seemed to me that if you're going to break the manifesto, you might as well break it big time and really raise some money, because £6 billion.
Now let's come up with some 3-digit numbers.
I understand that there was.
Let's do some 3-digit
Go
numbers.
through that muddy path of not upsetting Labour MPs too much.
The 3-digit numbers get the
off the table, and that does make it a lot harder to raise the money. You know, you can
get the lime green color.
Capital gains tax. I put that up by 1 percentage point. You know, that currently raises X. Well, I could get a little bit more money, but what actually happens is that people look at that and move their money elsewhere, and the tax base is very mobile. So if you have a lot of small measures with that risk attached, you end up in a world where you struggle to raise. You potentially, I should say, struggle to raise the money. There's just a lot more uncertainty. You know, there's a sort of backloaded in sort of the parlance, the backloaded element to it, which isn't what markets like to see. They not like an upfront down payment when it comes to fiscal adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the pre-announcement,
All right, so we're gonna go
which laid out her economic thesis.
start from
a couple of
here.
months ago.
291.
Calm and good.
I think the immediate harm we've seen is that it has created a sense of chaos and loss of control around narrative for this budget, because you've had Reeves clearly preparing the country for one thing and then moving away from that in the last couple of weeks, and that does give an air of lack of control and wayward government, and that is clearly harmful. But I think that the kind of counterbalance
91,
she did
003.
prepare in the minds of voters the idea that the manifesto could be broken, and now it's like we're heading for a budget where it isn't broken, and so you can see why the ultimate outcome is a kind of net positive for Reeves, in that she can say
105.
and we still have stable public finances, everything I've announced, and we've kept our promises. So I think ultimately it's landed in a place that isn't awful for Reeves, and you can see why she did it, in that they know the OBR productivity downgrade that Dan just described.
105, 577.
Explain, and if Reeves hadn't done that, it would have been lost pretty much entirely on budget day and in the post-budget coverage, where all of the newspaper headlines would have been about the tax increases. So I think Reeves wanted to get out there first and make her case in a moment where the public were focusing on that rather than the tax rises.
Dan, just if we look forward to the next few days, is there a particular announcement which could spook markets, or which would spook markets the most?
And that's hard to. Any particular one is hard to put nailed down. I mean, the thing that markets don't want to hear anything about is something that increases inflation. So any sense that a policy, the policies aren't, or the set of policies, I should say, aren't particularly disinflationary, that's going to be
842, you said.
Sign for markets, and you're likely going to get a negative reaction. I think the other thing, going to Joe's point, it's very hard to know exactly what the market expects in terms of building the headroom against the fiscal rules. But, if she only adds 5 billion to the headroom, it's not really, it's nothing really. So I still think that
They have to trace the number 3 times in order to see it with this lime green.
25 billion pounds of headroom using that.
725.
Now maybe it'll be closer to 20. Because I think they're, going to Joe's point about politics of this and what's the best path for Reeves, if there is a strong negative market reaction, that's going to be a problem for her as well. So, there's that side of it as well that she's trying to balance, as well as the politics.
My thanks to both of you for joining me. That is our Chief UK economist, Dan Hanson, and our UK politics reporter, Joe Mays. I'm Caroline Hepker here in London. You can catch us every weekday morning for Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, beginning at 6 a.m. in London. That's 1 a.m. on Wall Street. Nathan.
Thanks,
679.
Up on Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, we'll look ahead to official PMI figures in China. I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we ask kids, what do you want your parents to hear? I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success. Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids.
633.
At soundedouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
This is New York's only 24-hour source for world markets and breaking business news. Bloomberg 1130. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at CBS News.
CBS Newsbrief talks in Geneva among the U.S., Ukraine, and several European nations on a Ukraine peace plan ended for the day, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio sounding optimistic.
We got 281.
I think this is a very, very meaningful, I would say, probably best meeting and day we've had so far in this entire process.
CBS Director of Surveys Anthony Salvato tells Face the Nation
And 497.
almost 60% of people still see prices going up.
People say they're hearing from the White House doesn't match with what they are feeling. They say that the president is making the inflation issue sound better than it really is.
Incoming New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani told NBC his meeting with President Trump could lead to good things.
We were not shy about the places of disagreement about the politics that has brought us to this moment, and we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
CBS Newsbrief, I'm Michael Toscano.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com. Bloomberg Television and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. Let's update market action in our
513. He said 513.
Group has made a fresh takeover approach for Anglo American. However, we are told it's been rejected by Anglo. Anglo already has a merger agreement with Canada's Teck Resources, and we are told Anglo deemed the BHP offer not superior. In about 3 weeks, shareholders from both Anglo and Teck are set to vote on their deal. It would create a new copper giant worth more than $60 billion combined. The Trump administration is teasing a big healthcare announcement in the coming week. More from Bloomberg's Monica Ricks.
910.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the Trump administration is working on bringing down U.S. healthcare costs. He talked about it while addressing affordability issues on NBC's Meet the Press.
We had a very big October for home sales. Energy prices, gasoline is down. We believe healthcare is going to come down. So across the board, prices are starting to come down.
Bessent didn't offer specifics on healthcare, but President Trump has opposed congressional efforts to extend Affordable Care Act. They expire at the end of the year, and insurance premiums are expected to surge. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
The U.S. government will be releasing more of its delayed economic data in the coming week. We'll have the September reports on retail sales, producer prices, and durable goods. We'll also have the Fed's latest Beige Book survey. Markets will be closed on Thursday to observe.
Let's see, 910 and
Of course, Black Friday is the biggest retail day of the year.
910, and then we got 113. We got 113 over here. We're going to put it over here.
The survey headline fell to a reading of 51. That is near the lowest level in history. Now, consumers have the dimmest view on their personal finances. That since about 2009, and they see the probability of losing their jobs at the highest level in about 5 years' time. Also, last Friday, New York Fed Bank President John Williams said he sees room for a Fed rate cut in the near term. Right now in Sydney, ASX 200 higher by more than 1%. This is Bloomberg.
The Fed's top names are on Bloomberg Radio. Fed Governor Stephen Myron.
I would absolutely vote for a 25 basis point cut if my vote was a marginal vote. There's no question about that.
San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly.
We cannot take our eyes off inflation. Americans have endured high inflation too long.
Fed President Alberto Mussolini.
All right, so we put 910. Now we got to get 413.
For the latest headlines from the Fed, listen on Bloomberg 1130 or anytime on the Bloomberg Talk Podcast.
Join Bloomberg in San Francisco or online for Bloomberg Tech Presents, Empowering Business Growth in the Digital Economy, December 10th. Hear from top finance and technology leaders as they share strategies, tools, and insights to help small and medium-sized businesses thrive. From mastering digital payments to building customer loyalty in a competitive market. Register now at BloombergLive.com/empowering business growth. This event is proudly sponsored by MasterCard.
Missed your favorite show on Bloomberg Radio? Now you can listen to every Bloomberg podcast on YouTube. Visit the Bloomberg podcast page on YouTube to
All
join
right,
us
413. Then we got to do 308.
By the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130. Skies becoming clear through the evening and overnight hours.
All right, we got 308.
35 to 40. Breezy again on Monday, mostly sunny with our highs near 50. Overcast for Tuesday, showers possible in the afternoon, 50 to 55. Another chance for showers.
Got 001.
Sunny late afternoon, upper 50s. I'm Hannah Sheehy with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 1130. Bloomberg Radio, on demand, and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. edition podcast, we talked about a stomach-churning week for markets with Bloomberg's Valerie Teitel.
Really, crypto.
Then we got 9.
Yesterday, which drove one of the biggest swings in the Nasdaq.
947.
Nearly 4% in yesterday's session in an hour and 40 minutes, Nathan. A kind of intraday swing like that doesn't come around often, and it probably put some hair on some traders' chests yesterday. Huge U-turn in the market, sparked by what we are unsure, and that is what is unnerving investors on this Friday. Might I add to all of this that this is ahead of the Thanksgiving week, which is known historically to
Then we got 1.
Perhaps those investors
08.
sitting on the sidelines or might be choosing this Friday afternoon to de-risk ahead of the holidays.
Is this just about concern around AI valuations, or are concerns about what the Fed could do next month feeding into this as well?
You know, I mean, I like to, as someone who comes from a fixed income background, I do believe the Fed is always instrumental in moves like this. We have had a hawkish round of Fed speak in the last 3 weeks, and essentially what we got from that employment report yesterday didn't necessarily help. Yes, it was delayed. It was September's data, but again, it plays into the hands of the hawks that might want to argue that the labor market has found some ground. There was a big beat where that headline number coming at 119.
All right, we got 108.
Of 51. And we did have some hawkish Fed speak yesterday as well. Heard from Goolsbee saying he's essentially uneasy about cutting in December, bar focusing on inflation concerns.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. Edition podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere.
That's what I put, 108. I already chose 108 before you typed it in.
It's the number 1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene, breathe easy again. Use as directed.
Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
Late-breaking news from baseball. The Mets are reportedly sending Brandon Nimmo in a trade to the
Okay, 921.
in exchange for second baseman Marcus Semien. In the NFL today, the Detroit Lions in overtime came from behind to defeat the Giants 34-27. Also in Baltimore, the Ravens defeated the Jets 23-10. That's your Bloomberg Sports. I'm Seth Everett.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, our global look ahead at the top stories for investors in the coming week. I'm Nathan Hager in Washington. We turn now to
Oh, we got
China, where there's
6.
a question as to whether the economy will hit this year's growth target of 5%. In the week ahead, Beijing releases its official PMI figures. For more, here's Doug Prisner, host of the Daybreak.
655.
Nathan, weak economic momentum in China has persisted from the third quarter into the early part of the fourth quarter, and the slowdown appears to be broad-based. For a closer look, I'm joined by John Liu, Bloomberg Executive Editor for Greater China. John joins us from our studios in Beijing. John, thank you for being here. I'd like to start with this PMI data, and I'm curious as to whether we're going to learn anything new regarding the Chinese economy.
I think the PMI data is going to show a continued weakness in the economy. Manufacturing PMI has been in contraction.
Well, we already got 108. 901.
We will get an 8th consecutive month. Services PMI has been very, very close to that 50-point edge. between contraction and growth, and I think we will stay there. There's even a danger that we will slip into contraction services as well.
You know, it's interesting that you made that point about services, because when I look at some of the more high frequency type data coming out of China, or even the monthly activity data for the most recent month, demand domestically is still struggling. And I know the government has been trying to figure out a way to address this issue. Are there any
221?
Is it basically turning into a bit of a treadmill and going back to the old playbook to try to figure out what may work?
So I think the situation has actually gotten a little bit worse in the last month or so. So we got data for the month of October, and that showed the thing that really surprised people was a drop-off in investment in China. And so investment is almost half of GDP. And so we get investment data that's on a year-to-date basis. So when we got the October data, it was for the first 10 months of 2025.
Yeah, it's 221.
Calculate on our own.
And we got 613.
And most economists believe that investment fell 11%, more than 11% in October. That would be the biggest decline since the beginning of COVID back in 2020.
Is it a demand issue, or is there a problem with the financial system in China where things are becoming a little clogged?
So it's a combination of a lot of different things. On one hand, there's been some weakness in exports, and so that means there's less incentive for companies
613.
investing in new factories, etc. The Chinese government's also been pushing for sort of trying to reduce the capacity problem that we have in China. There are too many factories churning out too many goods that are all trying to
Yes, we are playing the numbers game. Let's see, 777.
Europe, with South America, with Africa, with countries around Southeast Asia. And so the government's trying to pull that back. That's been reducing the impulse to build out factories, to invest at a corporate level. And at the same time, the government has been pushing local governments, so cities and provincial governments, to pay back their debts instead of using the money they have to finance new infrastructure projects. And so all of those
And we got 000.
led to this pullback in investment.
So everything that you said just now, do we have to place that in the context of a country that is still struggling with deflationary forces? You mentioned the overcapacity issue. Yes, that's a part of it, but I'm wondering whether there's real concern now that China perhaps has entered some sort of deflationary trap.
And then we got 427.
The government is trying to address it. I think that is why this anti-involution
427.
that the government sees at the roots of why China has this deflation problem is there's just too many factories turning out too much stuff, much more in excess of what actual demand there is in China. And so you either have to export it, or all of these companies need to cut prices every month just to compete to get their product out the door.
So when I think of deflationary traps, I think of the Japanese economy for what amounted to 3 decades. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on these days between China and Japan and what appears to be a real diplomatic test for the new Japanese.
All right, we need 4 more numbers. 4 more 3-digit numbers.
The issue of Taiwan. Where do you think this ends up?
So the comment by the new Japanese Prime Minister really touched on a red line for the Chinese government, which has since the Civil War in the middle of last century, claimed Taiwan as a part of China. And so when she said
3-digit. 4 more 3-digit numbers. Hold on, you're going too fast. You're going into the 4-digit. I said 3-digit. We did 4 more 3-digit numbers, but let's get those 4-digit numbers that you just typed. 5437.
The Japanese government is going to be extremely reluctant to do that. So we're sort of at an impasse at the moment. We just had a delegation from Japan travel to Beijing for talks that have essentially yielded nothing. And so going forward, I think you will see more pressure from Beijing. They've been advising tourists not to Japan, and I think the Japanese will be trying to stand their ground.
So if you look at the relationship of these two countries, just insofar as trade is concerned, what kind of damage could be done if China were to impose some strict controls on exports to Japan, or even products that are imported from the Japanese manufacturers into China?
So China is Japan's largest trading partner. It is a giant market for, as you said, a lot of this equipment and supplies that come into China, get put into various different electronics and other products, and are either exported to overseas markets or sold within China itself. And so there is a potential for companies like Honda and Toyota and Nissan to lose share in a very important market for them. At the same time, obviously, China supplies a lot of rare earths to the Japanese, as they do.
So we got 8:38.
Could use that could cut off that supply. That could cripple a lot of the Japanese manufacturing that happens. And so, the risks are very high for both.
We got 7.
On the level of tourism that a lot of Chinese tourists end up going to Japan for vacation.
We got 792.
Is that dynamic beginning to shift?
So we've had a lot of anecdotal evidence that tour groups are canceling their reservations in Japan, Chinese tour groups. We've had reporting that shows Chinese state-owned companies are telling their employees not to go to Japan.
All right, that's it. We're finished. We're finished with three-digit numbers.
Are still full of tourists. And so until we get more aggregate data, it's really hard to tell cumulatively how much of an impact it will have. But if this goes on, the longer it goes on, we have to expect that the bigger the drag on the Japanese economy it will be.
John, we'll leave it there. Thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure. John Liu, he is executive editor for Greater China, joining from Beijing. We go to Singapore next, where in the last week we heard from thought leaders at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. We spoke with Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. Here's a portion of the conversation with Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite.
Can I ask about Singapore as a financial hub? You've had this onrush of money coming here. You've had this big push to lure people here, the family offices. You see many of them here. A lot of wealthy people coming here. And you get two issues from that. The first one is this issue of inequality.
145.
The Gini coefficient has got better, but in income terms, getting better. But there is this, every time I come here, people talk about inequality more.
Yeah.
And I wondered, you've already introduced taxes on luxury cars and properties. But do you see Singapore moving towards other things, a capital gains tax, for instance?
Two separate issues, really, because wealth management, Singapore is a financial center. I think we can grow in terms of wealth management. Family offices may set up here. They are not Singaporeans. They, have their offices here. They manage your funds out of Singapore. We welcome that. It creates jobs for Singaporeans. I think that's a good thing, and we can explain that to Singaporeans. Sometimes it creates frictions, especially when
835.
Shows Ferraris and things. And we have just to remind them that Singapore is a different. We are egalitarian. Our norms are different. Please understand. And for the most part, they do. Tackling wealth inequality where it comes to our people and our population, that's something we continue to work on, whether it's income or wealth. We have a range of policies. It's not just about tax alone, because in Singapore, we have the ability to also provide wealth injections. And a major reason why we can do that is housing. Almost everyone owns their own home. Majority live in public housing. And when you buy a flat from the Housing Development Board in Singapore, you get housing equity. And that's the reason why even at the lower end of bottom 20% of households, actually they have significant net wealth, net asset value because of home ownership. So that's one way we can continue to fine-tune our policies to provide more support and uplift for lower income groups. We also have a Central Provident Fund, which is Social Security, which is the individual's own retirement nest egg, which we do top-ups from time to time. So our tool sets are not limited. I know there's a lot of interest. Again,
All right, now we're going to go to the four-digit numbers.
Capital gains tax, wealth tax. There's a lot of questions about tax. But
We got 1, 2,
I'll take that.
7, 9.
There's the other issue about a lot of wealthy people coming here is that not all of them have been virtuous, if I can put it that way. You have the money laundering.
Yeah, we've got illicit flows.
Yes, and you had the accusations about from the US about one of the heads of the main Asian crime families being here. you've dealt with these things, but there is, and one of your ministers had a very nice Chinese saying, when we open the windows, some flies may also enter.
And sometimes we get more than flies.
Yes. So how many flies can Singapore tolerate? And do you need a bigger fly swatter?
We do have quite a big fly swatter. I mean, we take it very seriously. It's not unique to Singapore. The illicit flows are everywhere.
1936.
All financial centers have to deal with this. So to us, it's not so. What, that there is an incident. There are incidents, and there are bound to be suspicious transactions, and then with intelligence, with cooperation across different countries, eventually we get to the bottom of it. The key is, what do you do? And we are very stringent, and we take swift action. And we are determined to protect our reputation, because that's what keeps Singapore going, a trusted business and financial center.
That was Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong speaking with John Micklethwaite, editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News, during the New Economy Forum in Singapore. I'm Doug Krisner. You can catch us weekdays, Daybreak Asia Podcast.
1968.
Wherever you get your podcast. Nathan?
Thanks, Doug. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend. Join us again Monday morning at 5 a.m. Wall Street time for the latest on markets overseas and the news you need to start your day. I'm Nathan Hager. Stay with us. Top stories and global business headlines are coming up right now.
1863.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at CBS News.
It's CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'm Michael Toscano. A new CBS News poll shows continuing unease about the American economy. Deputy Surveys Director Jennifer DePinto.
60% of Americans say President Trump describes things with prices and inflation as better than they really are. And this includes about 4 in 10 Republicans who say that. This comes as just 32% of America's economy is good.
Holiday shopping is generally more expensive. Bankrate says 78% of the holiday staples it tracks will cost more this year than last, thanks in part to tariffs. Bankrate Sarah Foster says the key this year is to shop early.
Retailers, their inventories dwindle, and you can't really wait until the last minute the way you could last year to get the best deal.
She also suggests talking to your family about cutting back on gift giving. Maybe do a secret shop where you only have to buy for one person.
No one wants to see you be in credit card debt, especially not your family.
Michael Wallace, CBS News.
The White House
76-89.
Ukraine peace plan talks in Geneva, quote, showed meaningful progress in their first day. And a Ukrainian negotiator says a new draft of the plan reflects their key priorities. This, as CBS's Willie James Inman reports, President Trump continues to have his ups and downs on the matter.
President Trump issued a message on social media Sunday taking aim at Ukraine, days after the U.S. proposed a peace plan to end Russia's war with Ukraine. On Truth Social, the president wrote, "I inherited a war that should have never happened. Ukraine leadership has expressed zero gratitude for our efforts." U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Switzerland for talks with Ukrainian and European leaders regarding a possible peace deal.
I think this is a very, very meaningful, I would say,
2108.
and day we've had so far. Rubio has now departed Geneva and is on his way back to Washington. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, heads to Puerto Rico tomorrow to thank service members involved in the U.S. military buildup in the region. It's a buildup against Venezuela. Kentucky Republican Rand Paul says needs clarity, telling Face the Nation.
We got 32.
This discussion, is it war or not? From Britain, there has been
32.
Disgraced former Prince Andrew to a request
06.
House members to take questions about his friendship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Britain's Prime Minister has become the latest to say the commoner, formerly known as Prince Andrew, should talk to the Congressional Committee investigating the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Keir Starmer says anyone who has any information about a case like that should give evidence. No word from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Just how good is Pure Talk's current deal for unlimited wireless?
I'm finished with the triple number matrix. We only got the four number matrix left. The 4 numbers. We're finished with the 3.
This is Pure Talk's top tier plan. It comes with a crazy fast 5G network along with the 30 gig hotspot. And at just $29.95 a month, there has never been a better opportunity to lock in a ridiculously low rate for as long as you live.
But I'll put that into the next days.
This plan is normally $65 a month.
I'll put that into the next days.
You will save over 50%
Next day's matrix.
for the rest of your life. See what I mean? It really is the deal of your lifetime. Southbound 250, say micro. Upper ends 12.7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com. If you're Christmas shopping for a Hobbit fan, well, this could be news you can use.
A collection of Hobbit author J.R.R. Tolkien's personal effects is going to be auctioned off here in the UK early next month. It includes a briefcase, an extremely rare first edition of the
All right, I did put it down there. 007.
Oxford home, and a pipe given to him by close friend C.S. Lewis, himself author of the Narnia books. Lewis using his nickname for Tolkien when he inscribed the accompanying note to Tullers. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
Studio estimates show the weak musical sequel Wicked for Good stole the box office spotlight in its debut this weekend, taking in $150 million. Ever for a Broadway musical adaptation. The second place in the U.S. and Canada is Now You See Me, Now You Don't with 9.1 million. Third place went to Cut It to
All right,
Bad
so we
One,
got
6.2.
000,
Michael Toscano, CBS News.
007.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day. Bloomberg.com.
We got 22.
Bloomberg Business App. This is a
94.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. Let's update top stories and market action. We begin in the mining industry, where BHP Group has failed in a fresh takeover.
And we got 30.
Anglo-American. We are told Anglo rejected
32.
Anglo already has
09.
Canada's tech resources, and we are told that Anglo deemed the offer from BHP to be not superior. Now, in 3 weeks' time, shareholders from both Anglo and Teck are set to vote on their deal. It would create a giant copper company worth more than...
Now we need 3, 6, 9, 12. We only need 12 more.
Major focus for market...
We only need 12 more 4-digit numbers to finish this matrix.
No surprises here. Black Friday unofficially kicks off holiday shopping season the day after Thanksgiving. This week, we also get a delayed look at how shoppers were doing in September. Retail sales for the month come out Tuesday, more than a month late due to the government shutdown. We also get retail earnings on Tuesday from Kohl's, Best Buy, and Dick's Sporting Goods. PC makers Dell and HP tell us how their sales fared during the shutdown, and their earnings, they come out on Tuesday as well. In Washington, I'm Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
And the government will be releasing more of its delayed economic data in the coming week. We'll have the September figures on the retail sales, producer prices, durable goods. And don't forget the Fed's Beige Book report on Wednesday. Markets obviously closed Thursday for the Thanksgiving holiday. Now,
All right, we're going to go...
John Williams was saying that he sees room for the Fed to cut interest rates again in, and I'm quoting now, the near term. He said the downside risk to employment have increased, while the upside risk to inflation have eased. Williams also said that
47, 14.
restricted. So now the market sees about a 65% probability of a rate cut at December. Prior to the Williams speech, that probability was around 45%. No,
We got 47, 14.
So no trading in U.S. Treasuries until the London session. Right now in Sydney, ASX 200 up 1%. In Seoul, the Kospi up 0.8%. Global news 24 hours a day. This is Bloomberg.
Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
Giants fall in overtime in Detroit, 34-27. They're winless on the road at 0-7. Jets were pounded in Baltimore, 23-10. Ravens have won 5 straight after a 1-5 start. They're now tied atop the division. NBA Nets, they're down double digits, under 10 left in the first half.
Then we got 1907.
Kraken and the Owls were scoreless. And the Mets and Rangers reach a deal to send Marcus Semien for
1907.
This is Wall Street Week. I'm David, bringing you stories of capitalism. Last summer, we took you to Jackson Hole, the wealthiest place in the country. Now we head east to Arkansas and Michigan to see what drives the most charitable counties in the U.S. President Trump came to office promoting a swing away from green energy. But given the exploding energy demand from those AI data centers has all of the above, won what was a battle between fossil fuels and renewables. As the Formula One season draws to a close, we spend time with the man who has already won. Background brings us the remarkable story.
And we got 17.
Rebellious high schooler in California to the pinnacle of auto racing as head of McLaren Racing.
1784.
This week of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the White House, a symbol of a potential shift for investors from looking to the kingdom as a source of capital to a destination for Western investment. Deborah Lair of Vaselina has been working on the transition. So Deborah, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, came to Washington this week. As far as you know, what was his agenda?
Well, just the arrival and the welcoming ceremony already has been a great success for the Crown.
And we got 83.
An unprecedented way to the White House with this
83, 92.
and military on horseback escorting him into the White House. Flyover, the president personally walking him through already shows both the respect that the president has for him and the partnership that the United States is demonstrating with the kingdom. Under Vision 2030, the Crown Prince has put a priority on diversifying the economy. This year, for the first time ever,
And we have 70.
of GDP actually comes from the non-oil sector. So as they look to attract data centers,
84.
don't want to be host to them. They want to build out a whole infrastructure around data centers to be an electricity and cheap energy supplier, to building out the whole AI network, to attracting AI networks, to being a world leader in e-games. One of the benefits that Saudi Arabia has is obviously it's one of the largest countries in the Middle East, and so they can provide space for manufacturing data centers to provide that technology. There's low-cost energy for building up the AI infrastructure, so they've been in discussions to build out their own AI infrastructure. They have their own domestic champions that they're building out, like Humane, but also they're looking to be the esports and
Let's see. Then you have
and so they've spent a lot building out that infrastructure, in part because they have such a young population, but also it's an
44.
opportunity for them to show their own technological capabilities.
Saudi Arabia is a wealthy country.
27.
Maybe not quite as wealthy as it was before because the price of oil is somewhat suppressed. That's where it gets a lot of its revenue from. It doesn't have to cut back at all on its investment ambitions, given where its fiscal situation is.
Well, that's an excellent point, and clearly their revenues are still highly dependent on the price of oil. And we have seen a cutback in recent years on some of the mega projects. So we've seen that in the case of NEOM, where they've cut back on the grand ambitions and slimmed down the project, but also then focused in on other things like the Saudi Expo, where they are putting a lot of money into.
All right, we only need 6 more numbers.
I think they're also
We only need 6 more 4-digit numbers. We only need 6 more 4-digit numbers.
Millions and millions of dollars on plans, strategies, and ideas of how to build or how to make these mega projects successful. Dependent on those outside consultants anymore. We've seen really a move to much more specialty insights that they're seeking from outside experts and taking a lot on themselves.
The Crown Prince, as you say, set out a very ambitious agenda for 2030. Do they have enough of a track record yet to know whether they're on track for where they need to get to?
The Vision 2030 was a very ambitious all-of-nation plan, one of the most ambitious transformations in the world, and it was a very aggressive timeline. When we look at some of the indicators, for example, attracting foreign investment, what they've had to do is transform their regulatory structure. That even though it is moving forward, they've been able to streamline.
I said 4-digit numbers.
Opened up sectors to 100% ownership by foreign firms.
It's not one-sided. Western investors are responding to the friendlier tone. And
We're done with the 3-digit numbers.
In the past year, tech companies like Tesla and Scale AI
1603.
and offices there. Stephen Cook of the Council on Foreign Relations says Saudi Arabia is opening up with some limits.
Saudi Arabia is now open for business. Of course, there are restrictions. This is Saudi Arabia, after all. But the Saudis are interested in bringing the world to Saudi Arabia. They look at its location. They see it as an important center for culture, sports, tourism, technology, and logistics. I think the Saudis are kind of opening the door to all of these companies who have expressed a tremendous amount of interest in coming to Saudi Arabia. But there is issues related to kind of, from what I understand, related to what the Treasury Department and what the Commerce Department will allow a company like Google or Apple to do in a place like Saudi Arabia.
What about countries other than the United States as possible investors? Are you seeing, for example, from Europe?
Yeah, you're seeing general interest in the quote-unquote new Saudi Arabia. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, his mantra has been to make Saudi Arabia a normal country. Now, he is not a Democrat. He's not a liberal. This is all top-down reform. But I think what he sees is most Saudis are 18 to 50 years old. And if you're going to make your country prosperous and you're going to want to have that cohort staying there and making their lives there. And so he's been inviting investment from all over the world into the kingdom so that people can work and live and enjoy their lives like they would if they were in the United States or Europe.
Well, one of the areas of potential investment is real estate, commercial and residential. What is the level of investment in real estate right now going on in Riyadh, in Jeddah?
Well, I mean, the only way to really answer this, David, is to say that the most oft-cited bird in Saudi Arabia, especially in those two cities, is the construction crane. I mean,
7642.
Construction cranes in Saudi Arabia to satisfy all the building that is going on. They've had to bring them in from other places.
In terms of real estate, who's doing the investing in all this construction, with all these cranes you talk about? Where's that money coming from?
Well, a lot of this is driven by the government, but they've encouraged private firms to engage in the development of cities and so on and so forth. So there are authorities that the government has established that have partnered with private firms in terms of the development in Jeddah of the old city and development of hotels there and tourist attractions there. But a lot of this is top-down driven by the government.
But there is private money coming in. We've heard about Trump developments in both Jeddah and Riyadh. Anna Newman has a flow project in Riyadh as well. That's private money going in, and do they partner with Saudi? And how does that work?
Well, yeah. So there has been a recent change in how foreigners can invest in real estate. It's in certain areas, and it has to be in partnership with a Saudi entity. But it is less restrictive than it was, where previously
5308.
Foreigners to invest in real estate in Saudi Arabia.
Right now, AI is all the rage, right? In the United States and elsewhere. There's a lot of concern about maybe a bubble, over-investing in AI.
1313.
In, for example, real estate in Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's certainly the case. But again, there is a build it and they will come aspect to what they're doing. The Saudis, when you press them on this, will say that, they've done the hard work and know that there's demand for all of this. But if you just look at the scale of the projects that they're doing, they're not even called mega projects, they're giga projects. They're enormous, $1 trillion bet on a country. You have to wonder whether the demand and supply will come together on this. And again, we've seen this before, where the Saudis have they had this grand vision for new cities and they've never come to fruition. Look, NEOM, which is something that the Crown Prince has talked a lot about. In many ways, it's his baby. They've had to scale that back over and over and over again. Part of it is engineering and the idea that what he envisions it is extremely difficult to do. But at the other end of it is just putting a city down in a place where one didn't exist before. Not only has engineering challenges, but you have to wonder, if there wasn't a city there before, why would there need to be a city there now? So it's those kinds of flights of fancy that I think people need to be worried about when it comes to Saudi Arabia.
Coming up, we hear a lot about economic inequality in the United States, but not nearly as much about how much wealth and time is given away each year. As we head into the Thanksgiving holiday in the U.S., we'll go to the two most...
All right, we're finished. We're finished with the numbers game.
...and Western Michigan.
You're listening to Bloomberg Wall Street Week with David Weston from Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest Masters in Business podcast, conversation with author Morgan Housel on the art of spending money.
I think it's very often that you find behaviors that also have a Venn diagram overlap with money. That's pretty often. In terms of them being like a slam dunk of like, oh, that is just a phenomenal, interesting story. And it is so identical to what happens in investing. That's probably a once a year kind of thing.
Oh, really?
I think so. That's a really slam dunk.
In Psychology Money, you have a bunch of those, and Same as Ever, you have a run of those. There's a lot of that in this. You're less than 50 years old. You have more than 50.
Some better than others, though. There's a couple that I've come across over the years where I remember just sitting back in my chair and being like, that's just a jackpot. That story is just could not be better. And you find it in these areas that have nothing to do with money. I remember, so you mentioned in The Art of Spending Money the story about the sailors. It has absolutely nothing to do with money whatsoever. And I remember reading
everything to do with ego and behavior.
Ego and behavior. But I remember reading an old New York Times article. It was from not that old, it was 2007, and it had one line. It said there was a sailing race back in the 1960s, and one of the sailors was about to win, but decided he liked sailing, so he quit the race and just kept sailing. And I
didn't want the publicity and all the nonsense around it.
The opposite of ego. And I remember reading that and being like, that's interesting. Like, can we pull on that thread a little bit more? And you start doing research, and you're like, oh, this is ego, or the lack of it. And of course that applies to money in what I thought was just a slam dunk way.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Masters in Business podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Breaking news first. Market volatility continues. Renewed concerns around AI valuations, and markets are just whipping around.
Harder hit than equities has been Bitcoin.
Bloomberg 1130. First with news. First with reaction.
You don't see steep reversals like this very often.
The reality is there's still questions about the sustainability of AI. It's also what the Federal Reserve policy is going to look like. For the latest headlines and smart analysis.
We should get used to seeing some more of this chop.
Stay with Bloomberg 1130. This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Nike is turning to high-performance shoes to win back runners.
Nike used to really dominate the running sector, but over the past, several years, it's been ceding ground to a bunch of competitors.
Kim Basim wrote the story for Bloomberg News.
There's a few reasons that Nike's been losing market share. The competition's higher than ever. It's not just Adidas and Puma, but it's all these other running brands on Hoka, and they're developing really good shoes with really good technology behind them.
And therein lies the challenge for Nike.
What it also has to do is offer runners something exciting again, some breakthrough technology that's going to show people that Nike products can help them win something.
With Wall Street also looking for a win.
Nike said in the previous quarter this year that they've already hit the bottom, and now it's looking to return to growth, but